Welcome back to our Maritime Industry Dialogue sessions. We've had a bit of a long break, but we are excited to be kicking off again with 3 sessions before the end of the year, and one scheduled for the last Thursday of every month in 2022. Right, let's get into today's session. We are particularly excited about the topic of today's Maritime Industry Dialogue, innovation and green technology in the maritime sectors. We continue to see significant developments being announced by European innovators as major companies collaborate on unmanned vessels, alternative fuels, scrubbing technology, hull cleaning technology, ballast water treatment, and even more. What we want to know is, can South Africa play a significant role in innovation going forward? To help us discuss this, we've invited a diverse panel that includes Dr. Nicolene Roux, who heads up the Marine Manufacturing and Repairs and Associated Services Development Program at the CSIR. This department is integral in assisting the DTIC in establishing assistance programs to help boost the marine engineering sector in the country. We also welcome Alexis Grosskopf, who is the founder and CEO of OceanHub Africa. I've been wanting to engage with OceanHub for a while, and I'm excited to be able to welcome him to this webinar and to explain how OceanHub is situated to help innovators kickstart their ideas in the maritime space. Also joining us is Steve Randles, Director of KRS, a company that recently collaborated with a prominent maritime company to develop a ship management and monitoring system that rivals anything that is available on the international market. We believe his experience in developing this will provide valuable insight about opportunities that may still exist in the IT domain. Last, but certainly not least, we welcome Chris McCann, a well-known maritime maverick who has extensive experience in the maritime industry, most notably in the ship repair and building sector. He now finds himself brainstorming and collaborating with various companies about potential innovations that can be undertaken on the home soil. He is also the founder of the newly created South African Clean Technology Association. Just a reminder, our next webinar will be on the 25th of November at 4, where we will take an in-depth look at the maritime tenders issued over the last year, highlighting specific trends. We will also be joined by a consultant who assists companies compile submissions to provide some insight on this aspect of becoming a successful bidder. But let's get into today's session. Okay, if I can ask my panelists to turn on their cameras now that we've welcomed everyone. I see Chris has actually made it into the room. Thanks, Chris. We were a little worried about you. And I'm going to kick off right away. Basically, now that I've introduced everyone, I hope I don't have to say who you are again. I think the photos were quite recent, so you look like your profile pics. My name's Colleen Jacka. I'm the editor of Maritime Review Africa, and it's good to be back doing these webinars. Let's just start with the idea of opportunities, because I get frustrated when I get so many press releases from overseas about what everyone else is doing. And I think, why can't we be sending out those kind of press releases? So from an opening statement from each one of you, perhaps you could just, like, from where you're situated in the industry, give an idea of where you think opportunities may lie.
Right. Okay. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Okay. Quickly about the opportunities. I mean, as far as OceanHub Africa is concerned, we operate in the ocean impact space. So, and what clearly we see as a tendency, as a trend that is positive in generating opportunities, is that what was true for land-based industries a while back, when they were shifting to green industry, is happening with the ocean-based industries and what we usually refer to the blue economy, sustainable ocean economy. So whatever links to shifting existing businesses and industries into becoming more sustainable is clearly a source of opportunities, and in particular the technologies that are enabling that transition.
Thanks, Alexis. I'm just going to take from here. So through the program that I manage at the CSIR, I believe the opportunities, we present opportunities to industry. So we support two streams. The first one is standards and accreditations, where we assist local companies to obtain those to be able to operate in the global market. So this is a big opportunity for anybody that's on the call that wants to obtain standards and accreditations. Then we can provide assistance with that. And I think more aligned to this webinar is the technology enhancement, where we provide support for technology to be enhanced in South Africa. That could be any innovative product that you have, so either technology transfer out of a bigger research institution, for example, CSIR, into private industry, or any testing capability or testing support that's required. Now, this came from the marine industry being designated, and the DTIC that indicated that they want to promote companies to locally manufacture products into this designated industry. So that's the opportunities that I can talk about.
Sure, let me kick in. So, yeah, from again, opportunities in the software space, I think in terms of South Africa are actually huge. There's a perception that all marine software must come from overseas, and it generally comes with a pretty high price tag. The support costs and licensing costs are really huge. This perception is wrong. I mean, we've seen what's happened to Elon Musk, Mark Shuttleworth, just to name two, what they've done in the space. So we've actually got really good software development companies here in South Africa and very good developer skills. So, along with improved cloud services in the country, previously everything was offshore and we had to worry about POPI and GDPR and data flows across international boundaries and, secure remote storage. We've now got Azure data centers and Amazon Web Services data centers here in South Africa. So this cloud computing powerhouse is really has come home, and we can leverage this in many different ways through software as a service, platforms as a service, and move your self-hosting out into the cloud. I know a lot of maritime companies literally have little servers under the desk, and they try and prop them up and probably spend a lot of money on keeping that going. Another quick one is just connectivity. That's improved massively in the southern region, and just from the satellite links are getting better and faster and cheaper. But a really exciting one to watch is the Starlink one, also a SpaceX project. That's going to be 42,000 satellites in near Earth orbit, and we're looking at 20 to 40 millisecond latency. So anybody in tech realizes that that's really, really important to be able to get things like good IoT systems working and having live stream data up and down for cloud processing. And the price tag, it speeds from 50 to 300 megabits per second, and a price tag of 1,500 Rand a month. Now, the previous maritime satellite systems were just exorbitantly expensive. So, yeah, we talked about IoT. Of course, you've got to mention AI. This is really becoming a commodity in the cloud. And I think a lot of software we're going to see coming along is going to leverage that. So instead of building everything ourselves and, as I said, having it in the PC under the desk, it's going to be in the cloud, connected through a 5G satellite link, high speed. And very exciting things can come out of this. I think, Chris, you will talk more about your autonomous vessels, because it's absolutely, we're going to have self-driving cars, we're going to have self-driving vessels and aeroplanes and so all goes hand in hand with big data. I just think about weather data and vessel telemetry being shared in the cloud. Think about your Google Maps when you go navigating around. Yes, you know the route, but you don't know the best route because of who else is on the road. Google calculates that. So if we can start doing that in the vessel space, having live telemetry from vessels being shared, we would know where the blockages are, what the weather's doing, what are the tides doing, is there a storm? And you can just imagine the massive efficiencies in terms of fuel savings, time, cost, everything. It's really, really exciting stuff.
But obviously the crux of the matter for that is the data prices coming down, because that has been prohibitively expensive in the maritime space. Chris, over to you. I hope I didn't miss you.
No, you didn't. Thank you, Colleen. It's an honor to be here with you guys. I just taking off on the software opportunities. Certainly, there's an enormous amount of opportunities, not just for seagoing applications, but also for port and logistics and freight. And we've identified opportunities here in Durban, where there's been a buy-in for a proof of concept. The port are looking for solutions, terminals are looking for solutions, dry ports and container depots are looking for solutions that are real time. And to that end, we've established a spine that can be integrated with any IoT device, APIs from any kind of other software programs that can give you a full comprehensive case management system, incident management system, and all the real-time data that you need to make decisions, from oil spills to piracy. There's just so much required, and I think there's going to be tech is going to play a huge role. I'm a marine engineer by profession, and I've also been a navigator, a global navigator. And not that you want to do away with crewing of vessels, but yes, there's the crewing has become, certainly with this pandemic, a massive problem to recrew vessels and to get crew home, and they're just becoming more and more expensive. In order to, the technology is coming out that everything has been unmanned for a number of years. Not the bridges so much, but the engine rooms have been unmanned for a long time. But there's always going to be a requirement for maintenance, obviously import operations. So it's not. It should in fact enhance the training and bring in some new skill sets, and also give those that are in the maritime space already an opportunity to most probably sit behind a desk in a virtual experience and steer a vessel, do maintenance scheduling from an office. So that's on the one side, but in the South African ports, and obviously this applies to Africa, and you see it even in California right now, where there's huge backlogs of cargo movement as a result of inefficiencies and just basically the IMO have also made it quite difficult for small industry to develop, for startups to develop. Our big brothers here at Transnet have not made it easy, but there's still huge opportunities in off-port limit services, in ports where cleaning and bunkering and repairing needs to take place. There's a lot of scope for new players and for the existing guys to up their game and get more efficient in terms of offering more holistic solutions to the maritime industry. So the future for the maritime space for me looks extremely bright. Pursue a maritime career.
Okay,
I have no doubt about that.
Can I just cut you there a little bit, because that takes us to another point in terms of capacity. Now, you've really spoken about more from a crewing perspective. Yes, we will always have the crew training, and we do have crew training. But I'm thinking from the capacity of the type of minds that are required for this innovation, the type of companies that are required for innovation. Where are our gaps and what are we lacking, and how do we solve that? Nicolene, from your perspective, I mean, from the DTIC and CSIR's program, you're dealing with two very specific areas in terms of that capacity. Do you want to just tell us a bit more about that?
Yes, I actually enjoyed the portion that Chris just said, because we we're seeing the other side of that as well. We've got SMMEs applying for marine chemists for cleaning of tanks and services, and we know that the innovation is there. The mechanisms are there to have mobile units clean instead of sending the people down there. So our certification is hands-on for the marine manufacturing, and it's driven by marine manufacturing. So we are looking for components that's manufactured within in that space, and then local guys that actually say they've got the capability. So for us, we've noticed that there's not, we've lost somebody, but there's not, every time I speak, there's not such a big manufacturing component for South Africa. We don't have that many components that's being manufactured. And especially in the space of innovation, I think it's a big opportunity where we can get people, if we can still grow the companies, as Chris said, to make sure that the guys that's in that space advance to the level where they take innovation, they shouldn't get stuck and move forward. And that's where maybe the certification and accreditations can come in, where startups don't have the funding to obtain those standards and accreditations, as well as funding for the technology enhancement. In those cases, they can, through our program, get funding to grow with industry, to grow with the need globally, and to make sure that they have the standards to compete, not only locally, but also internationally. If it's IOC certification, which is more global than South African SANA's approval. So those type of fields is definitely where the program could assist.
Okay. Just in terms of that, do you find that companies, there's a big jump for them in terms of getting that accreditation, or are they pretty much well prepared to get the international accreditations, specifically within the maritime space? Because obviously that's quite a challenging international benchmark to reach.
Yeah, my experience is that there's definitely your big shipbuilding companies that's more advanced, that's ready for certification. But the issue comes in again when you go to the SMMEs that don't have ISO 9001. So they first have several other things to get in place before they can go for international certification. So there's definitely a jump for the lower guys, but we've got a few competitors that's ready, in my opinion, to take it up. But there's still a big gap between the SMMEs and the OEMs.
Okay, that jumps me down to Alexis, because you're dealing with a lot of SMMEs and small startups in the OceanHub. That's really where you're situated as well. And you've had, I think, now 2 calls for submissions. What are you seeing in that space, and what are the capacity challenges that are being faced there?
Yes, exactly. I mean, we've had 2 calls for applications. We'll be running our 3rd one next year. What we can catch with the signals that we're getting from applications and applicants and the opportunities that are arising. There's one point actually I forgot to raise earlier around the ship recycling. It's something that's growing massively. There's more regulations around it. The IMO, the EU are becoming more stringent on the regulations around decommissioning and recycling of ship, and it's a good opportunity for South Africa. We've had a few applications in that sense. There is, the IDC has funded a program in Saldanha Bay called 34 South for a green ship recycling facility. I like to call them blue rather than green. And there's more and more opportunities on that side. For the ship repair, for maintenance, it's still something interesting. We've had a lot of applications around, the streamlining of the ship and the maintenance of reshaping or removing biofuels to just make sure that biofouling, just to make sure that we consume less fuel. And then there's the biofuel aspect of things, which is also something that is starting to emerge and being more and more interesting in that space. I wanted to say something, but Chris is no longer on the call. In terms of the ship repair and the ports management, there is a threat to South Africa, though. There's a railway that's being built throughout, across Africa, between Kenya and Nigeria, or in the 2 coasts, more or less on the equator side. And that is a threat to the vessel. I mean, we've seen vessels coming through the tip of Africa, and because it's on the way, they will do the maintenance here or repairs. But with this threat of this new railway, we need to up our game here in South Africa. and position potentially ourselves in the more sort of tech advanced and innovation, and again around environment in particular. It's not only about the economic impact and being more efficient, it's also being more sort of eco-friendly, environment friendly, that will make a big difference, I believe.
Yeah, I think, I mean, in terms of the railway, obviously the African Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Agreement has impact. So I'm hoping to see more coastal shipping develop from that, but that remains to be seen. And absolutely, the ship recycling is something that I know the Transnet put out I think it's almost 2 years ago now, a call for proposals. And nothing's really come of that, which is a bit frustrating. But yes, I mean, I looked at the other day at the number of accredited green recycling facilities, a couple in Europe, nothing down here. It's absolutely a huge opportunity. But anyway, that's probably another whole webinar in itself. Steve, from your perspective, in terms of capacity and what you're seeing of maybe the new blood coming out of colleges and the knowledge of automation and what's required in the IT sector, what are you seeing?
Look, there is a keen interest in IT coming out of colleges, but the numbers aren't there. And I think it's actually, again, another webinar. I think our school system is failing us a little bit. So we're not getting enough of the sciences coming out. From a software perspective, we're needing maths and sciences, good problem-solving skills. So our intake pool seems to get sort of a little bit smaller each year. But having said that, we do a good job at training. There's various organizations and companies and initiatives going on in South Africa to train software skills. We've got Microsoft involved. We've got capacity down here in Cape Town. But at the same time, you've got a bit of a brain drain. So, just in our company alone over the last, whatever it is, 2 years or so, we've probably lost 5 to 6 developers that have moved on overseas, and we're not the hugest company. So, this is definitely impact. We've got people coming in, but, people leaving as well. So that's a concern. We really need to focus on retaining people. And I mean, that's a much bigger problem. But part of it is actually working on exciting projects. We find developers are interesting beasts. They really like a challenge and really like technical things to get into. And if it's exciting enough, they'll stay in the middle of a war. So we need to somehow make sure that happens. I do think that generally our engineers are going to be sought after and will need to be, we really need to build on that over the years because of so much more automation coming along. We're hearing about 4IR, the fourth industrial revolution, and, self-driving cars and automated this and that. And it's going to be driven by software. The world will be powered by software and engineers. And so that has to be quite a shift over the next couple of years. Moving away from sort of kind of blue collar, if I can say, to more scientifically orientated education that can actually run all this equipment. So a big challenge actually for globally. It's a global one.
Is that a particular challenge here in terms of a mindset that increased technology reduces job opportunity? And I know from specifically a port perspective, the more automated a port becomes, the less the number of stevedores required and so forth.
Exactly.
And I know that almost 20 years ago, where there was a small talk of concessioning terminals, that was a major stumbling block from the unions in terms, because they were worried that whoever took over the terminal would want to boost efficiency simply through automation. How do we get over that mindset in South Africa? Anyone want to?
Yeah. Well, I'll end off on a very difficult challenge because I think it's inevitable. It's going to carry on happening, and it does mean a shift in education. And a skills shift that also Chris mentioned earlier. Anybody else got an idea?
I was about to say the same. I mean, it's all about, what you lose on the one side, you can build and create new opportunities on the other side, and that's probably the best way. But it's a long transition. It has to be a smooth one as well. You can't do it too abruptly, otherwise it will be too impactful on the social aspect of things. I just want to say, I mean, I 100% agree. We have in South Africa the infrastructure for all of those businesses to grow and develop and grow upon. You know, it's great, but it needs to be maintained. There's that aspect that's very important also. It's an opportunity, but that's been sitting here idle for too long, I suppose. I don't want to put my finger at any organization, but maritime infrastructure needs to be maintained and upgraded to be able to welcome this new technology or, you know, the new market and where this maritime industry is sailing towards. And I'll also agree about the fact that we have the skills locally, but there's a brain drain. They're going away. It's, you know, even I think we are surviving this. We'll survive it with the sustainable native, the new generation coming now. But anything that's industry doesn't pay as much. It's not as appealing as anything that's services, right? And there's a lot of these nice engineering skills that are being, you know, attracted and poached by service companies, or, you know, in South Africa, banks, insurance, and whatnot, or just outside of South Africa, and that's also a problem. But Steve used to talk about this, retaining the talents for what they trained for.
Yeah. Welcome back, Steve. Thanks for not Steve, Chris, for joining back, trying to get back onto the thing. You're looking a little bit pixelated, but that's not too much of a problem. I'm going to move on to something which I think many small companies find as a challenge, and that is financing and funding. Often I go to conferences and startups will put up their hand and say, yes, but we just can't get into the industry because we have no access to funds. Now, I know from the perspective of where Nicolene's sitting, there is funds available there, and there are other potential government opportunities. But Nicolene, yours, what is the sort of criteria you're looking at for companies to get involved?
Colleen, so basically just apply, but you need to be within the marine manufacturing space. And if we've got calls, what I'm saying with apply, we've got calls that we run. So you need to go through a call to be into the program. So we've got a database, and if anybody wants to be on the database, they can just contact us, and then they'll get the notifications of the calls once they go out. But it's basically we run expression of interest and call for proposals. So it's through those programs or those calls that we identify companies to support. So once they're on our radar and we know they're marine manufacturing, we can include them into the program.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, I know that the DTIC for the last 2 years have kind of done research into the engineering space just to see where those gaps are. So you have a good idea of what kind of companies you want to welcome into that space.
Yes, so the program was designed to focus on the marine designated products. So these are 60% of all new builds that's funded by government money needs to be locally sourced. So that's where the focus is, looking at those. But the program has not only supported that, we've gone above and beyond that. There's other companies that we've also supported for services, such as welding, non-destructive testing, banksman, sligger, rigger certifications. We've gone outside of the scope of designation to assist the marine industry to be able to access the full marine supply chain.
Okay. And from your perspective, Alexis, what does the OceanHub... Sorry, I'm trying to plug in something to charge because electricity is back.
All right. I mean, so it depends. So a lot of what you've heard is about, you know, getting funding, but funding for what? And I think it's a very important question. At OceanHub Africa, we provide product and business development services, technical assistance in growing your product, shaping your product, and growing the business. A lot of around the strategy, the company culture, and the narrative, of the ocean impact, ocean-minded business that you're trying to create. And then ultimately, obviously, the networking and the vetting, the labels, accreditation, certification, as well. Nicolene was saying earlier, it's very important, in particular when it comes to innovation, because it's something new, people don't really know. So unless you get a stamp of something that is recognized, it's very difficult to start selling. So in terms of actual cash for cash, there is actually more and more impactful profit in ocean conservation earmarked funding. And if you can create a business that is impactful profit, there is a growing number of dollars available on the market for this. But then in terms of growing your business and your technology, I think over and above looking for cash, look for in-kind support. And this is where we started OceanHub Africa. And then once you're ripe and ready for market and investment, we'll go out with you and fish out some of that money that's earmarked for ocean impact, but also impact for profit. But there's a lot of it out there.
Okay. I mean, I think, particularly as you say in the conservation space, I know that the UN often and the European Bank often puts out calls for proposals. Chris, from your perspective, I mean, you're someone who is, whenever I speak to you, has got some interesting idea floating around in his head. And so I'm interested to know how successful do you think, or have you been in trying to access finances? And can you give some advice on where people should be putting themselves? Or
can you hear me? Is that
yes, we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so obviously in the South African context, funding has to be linked to almost a transformation.
All right. So as I was saying, let's go to Steve while Chris is away. Steve, you've had a different experience in terms of financing the development you had in the marine space. You actually collaborated with an existing company for something that they required.
Yes.
Is this a viable way for companies to get into the space?
Look, I think it is a way. There's definitely sort of private partnerships can happen. I think it really just does come down to, the size of the pockets and the longer term vision. So it really has to be a case of, as I said, the international software that is available for a vessel and crew management is incredibly expensive. Many millions a year just in license fees. So when you start doing the maths over a longer period of time, it really does start to make sense to start developing local software for your company that you can potentially own, or obviously get software from a local supplier. So this is where we came in. We started off, I think it was about 10 years ago, doing some work for Sylvester Marine, and they had this monster logbook that they would, physically write all their calendar schedules on and pickups. They do offshore servicing and crew transfers between vessels and the airport and all of that. So they had a huge manual system, and obviously there were inefficiencies and errors and all sorts of problems. So we got in there and we automated that whole system to the point of having a mobile device for sign off. So when somebody was dropped off at their point, they just signed on the mobile, and that immediately triggered the proof of delivery, triggered the invoice, and the customer got billed, and nobody lifted a finger. So that was a start, and because of that efficiency, we were introduced to AMSOL, and they also looked at it, and they were using a bunch of disparate systems, and we went in and had a look at it and realized that we could really make a difference in terms of understanding their business. We needed that marine partner. We weren't the marine experts. We software engineers. So working with the local partner over the years and developing slowly, bit by bit, this was sort of fairly modular, starting off just with the crew management and then vessel management and vessel performance and HSEQ and so on and so on. And we built up these modules over, a number of years. So it wasn't an upfront funding, oh gosh, we need these huge numbers to do the system. It was small incremental, delivering value as soon as possible, literally on a monthly basis. And so it became more of an operational budget. It was really like, okay, well, we're saving on license fees every month. We're just diverting that to the software. We don't need to go and do a huge, raise a huge amount of capital. So it's been quite a sensible way of doing it. And I think that, that's why we are where we are now. We're doing SPM operations and bunkering and all sorts of systems.
And now I do apologize for stepping out again. My load shedding ended and I got Wi-Fi back. So there was a little bit of a jump. These are the challenges of our new economy, and I am going to invest in a UPS system to stop having this issue. But Steve, just in terms of that, when you're developing with a partner for them specifically, how does that allow you to then market that product on an international basis? Is it
through a partnership? So, okay. Through a partnership with AMSOL. So
Can I come in here, Colleen? I think, Steve, kudos. This is, I mean, when someone is looking for funding, the go-to place is not knocking on Nicolene's door, sorry, Nicoline. It's not to get grant funding. It's to actually get client funded. The number one thing is just ensuring you have a product market fit. So you should go to your customers and say, hey, I can build this. Do you want to partner with me? And can we build this together? Because you'll need it. And that's the best proof that you actually have a product market fit. And it's important because it also keeps you on your toes, and you're shaping this with your direct customers, this product, this solution with your customers. That should be the number one place to go to when you're looking for funding. The other forms of funding are debt funding, that's your banks, but you need stability, or financial stability for that. There's equity, but equity actually costs a lot of money because as you grow, then the initial cash injections, when they cash out, becomes a lot. And there is obviously starting a bit of your own sweat investment, and that should be perhaps used with your client funding. But client funding is the number one place to go. And obviously there's the grant, but I think grant is often the number one that people think of, but it should not be that way. Client should be the number one. So well done, Steve. I think it's the best way to grow a business.
Yeah, I think it was vital just in terms of industry knowledge. As I said, we software engineers, so we can build just about anything for anybody, but they need to tell us what they want. So working with a partner who really understands the industry and it just makes a massive difference.
So, Steve, there's a question there from Kevin Watson of Saimi. So, I always get this wrong. Sorry, Kevin. South African Institute of Marine Engineers and Naval Architects. How do you go about in terms of, you've developed the software now, in terms of making it, ensuring that there's a longevity for it?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously one wants to, our vision is to get more traction in Southern Africa, but ultimately to take this overseas. And from the software perspective, we have comparatives of what is available, in terms of what we've got. And we really have a very good product. We've had good feedback on that one. So it is a case of moving into larger markets. But at the same time supporting with that. I mean, we're a software company. We've been going for 30 years and been giving 24/7 support to our customers all this time. One of our largest is South African national parks. So it's a case of building that capacity, retaining it, and you've got a plan for it. So it's not a thanks, we've got your license money, bye-bye, we'll see you later. It's part of the offering. Part of the offering is that support service.
Okay, I'm going to go to Chris quickly. Chris, you were in the middle of kind of telling us how you...
I don't know. But, okay, so I would... yes, I've managed to be part of a funding mechanism that helped us start SA Shipyards in 2002. They were part of the growth fund. They still exist. I think in most provinces there's a economic development aspect to a development bank or an institution. Here in KZN, there are a number of them, and for there's always funding available for a bankable business plan. Doesn't matter, in what vertical you're playing in. There's always funding available for a bankable business plan, and some of the projects that we're working on now, from smart port solutions, are coming from overseas. But I think what I'm hearing amongst all of us here, coming from the CSIR and the OceanHub guys, is you got to look at creating technology. The maritime industry is global, so you got to create technology that has a global appeal. The minute it's got a global appeal, you'll get funding from from Scandinavia, from the Middle East, from America, from Europe. As long as you've secured, obviously, the IP, you've done your, you might get some grant funding if you're doing a proof of concept. But generally, if you can work your way through the negativity that comes around, not just in the maritime space but in general, when it comes to the country's bankrupt and there's no money and so on. There's green funds available for innovation projects, just waiting to tap into projects that have got a zero carbon footprint, or a minimal emissions program, or a clean energy system. There's always funding available for that. Okay.
Okay.
And obviously you might have to partner. If you're a small startup, you might have to partner with a corporate, and there's ways of doing that, because corporates generally don't know how to innovate things. They should also be looking for opportunities off balance sheet to fund disruptive innovation and smart solutions for the maritime space, whether it's a shipping company, the Grindrods of this world. They've got their own banking license. I know someone like MSC, they go into public partnerships in order to get ship repairers up to speed. So there's always an opportunity for funding. I wouldn't like anyone to think that there isn't. As long as you've got a bankable business plan, you'll get funding.
Okay, just moving along, because I know Nicolene has to rush off. So Nicolene, just before you have to rush off, existing initiatives that are doing well. I mean, I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago about, and I do apologize if this was discussed while I was kicked out of the room, and just let me know. You were telling me specifically about a valve manufacturing company. So just from that perspective, can you give an idea of how they came about and how successful they are being now?
Yes, Colleen. So let's start with the valve company. The company's name is Peltec. So we assisted them to get marine type approval for their butterfly valves. So they became the first South African company that has this type of approval. So their valves that's locally manufactured can be used in international vessels. So that was quite a big achievement, and type approval is one of the things that we drive within the marine industry. But also relevant to this innovation discussion is the development of ship ballast water treatment system that we've also supported for Cybercom Atlas Defense. It's still a prototype; it hasn't been proved. But the prototype, yes, there's been success with the research, and they are still furthering their research. But the project was completed earlier this year, where they made a mobile ship ballast water treatment system through the support through the IEC program. Except for that, in addition, there's pilot ladders that we're looking into get certified MED certification. We're looking at certification of life jackets. That's US Coast Guard MED certified, which is a minefield on its own. But we're pursuing that. There's big things that we're trying to get local components to be certified. I'm going blank now because you're right, I have to rush. I'm trying to get everything into this conclusion remark. Other components, valves, the valve indicators, which is a continuing process on the valves that's actually manufactured. So valve indicators, as well as switch boxes at the end. So there's quite a few. So we're looking at the certification of seals for maneuvering systems. There's quite a lot of component specific that we're trying to do. And if there's anybody that would like to explore certification or even technology enhancement, they can just give me an email, give me a shout. So I'll post my email on the chat, and then just give me a call or send me an email, and we can see how we can assist you.
Thanks, Nicolene. If you do need to rush off, please do. If you do have a red handset at the top of your screen, please don't push it. Just close your browser, because otherwise you'll close the whole session down. From Alexis, your perspective, I had a look at some of the projects on your website that had come through, and And any that stand out for you?
In terms of purely maritime, we had a startup last year called Simbi Tech. They're using drone technology. Steve talked about IoT, and Chris was about unmanned vehicle. This is combining the two, right? It's a small unmanned drone using a lot of different sensors to clean the hulls of the boat, to reduce biofouling, to reduce hydraulic drag and fuel consumption, and also alien species invasion. And they've had a decent start of their product development. They've kind of hit a wall when they needed a bit more funding for the development, and we were trying to find a shipping company to sort of endorse this. And it was a bit more difficult because the bigger ones that usually afford this type of partnerships and innovation, outsourcing their R&D, are the bigger companies that are often based in Europe. So kind of hit a wall there, and this is when we started to look into grant funding. But in the other space, 34 South, which is not a startup that we're incubating, but it's a business that we also helping in our own way, is looking promising. This ship recycling facility that is supported by the IDC in South Africa that will open in Saldanha Bay. And then the other good sort of initiatives that we have in our pipeline, they're not directly linked to shipping or shipbuilding, but they are in the maritime space, in the ocean economy. And these South African companies are for offshore wind, for example, Bravefoil, quite impressive, shark-safe fire, trying to replace shark nets using biomimicry of kelp forest and things like that.
Okay, that is going to take me nicely into Chris's, and I can see he's itching to say something here. But before I hand over to him, I'd just like to say that today, very sadly, I was copied in on an email trail on a company in Cape Town to Transnet trying to get their hull cleaning license. The trail goes back to November 2020, and they are still awaiting.
Wow.
Yeah. So for me, that is just, such a lost opportunity. And especially now when I show you this short video that Chris wants me to show you, you'll understand the huge impact that South African company is actually having in this space. So if I can just ask everyone except Chris to turn off their mics and cameras, I'm just going to play the short video.
Okay, so there's some subtitles that you should be able to follow along with, but I'm going to talk you through just what this triggers a global market. What I was trying to say earlier. So by the way, this technology is ballast water treatment compliant. Okay, so it's been locally developed here in South Africa. It's a family-run business that have basically thrown everything at it in terms of resources. There's five family members that are working blood, sweat and tears for years, 4 or 5 years. They've developed and tomorrow, but this time tomorrow, they would have got approval, full approval for this technology in the maritime from IMO, Simco, and more than likely even from the Australian Maritime Authority. So this hull cleaning product is a result of years of R&D here in the port of Durban and also in Mauritius. Everything that you're seeing right now is this video is about 2 weeks old. Okay, so they have a customized factory that is almost climate control. You can eat off the floor. They developed a world-class solution for hull cleaning, first of its kind. There's no other company in the world
that has the accreditation that you guys are to achieve. So from US Coast Guard perspective, and from right down to the Department of Labour here in South Africa, they haven't missed anything when it comes to compliance and certification. And as a result of that, hopefully they're going to be hugely rewarded for their efforts. So every ship that's functioning on the oceans these days is going to have between 2 and 4 hull cleans a year. You have to deal with the evasive products that are attaching themselves to the hull at certain ports, and they have to keep it in terms of killing those pathogens and separating them. And as you'll see in this video, you could almost, most probably the cleanest seawater that goes back into the ocean. So there's no pluming, there's no, it's almost like a 99% recovery rate. So they haven't gone onto ROV yet, it's still in the ROV phase. But so these will manually operated. Hopefully you'll get an idea of the efficiency of this machine. It's obviously operated by one diver. He can change direction by himself very, very easily. There's a small buoy floating, orange buoy, not a human buoy. There's a buoy floating on top of the surface, you can see, that just helps with the competitive adaptability and fatigue. And we know that there's some kind of damage to the system. But the backup system, and each one of these, there's hydraulics, there's electronics, there's software. These guys have not spared a thing. From off-site monitoring to maintenance to ensure that any investor will get a good return for their money. Any ship operator, management company will get an efficient hull clean between 4 and 6 hours. It really is a testimony to perseverance. Kind of what I was saying earlier, that these people never gave up. They made a world-class product in Durban. Obviously, we need to look at where there's synergies and work with the valve company that the CSIR has supported, and any other local company, because obviously this is 100% South African technology, and it's not 100% local content. Some of the technology has been enhanced from companies like Alpha Laval that have made purifiers for years. These guys have perfected or improved the efficiencies of the Alpha Laval system, replacing a UV light. So if you've been looking at doing ballast water treatment, you'll know how difficult it is to efficiently get rid of those pathogens using lights and so on. These guys have patented systems that are way more efficient than anything I've seen in the years that I've been monitoring and being aware of ballast water treatment and hull cleaning. So, yes, go ahead.
So the other aspect of this, obviously, as I've pointed out now, is that it's difficult for anyone to get a license in South African ports. So obviously the international market,
Colleen, is huge. But these guys, in spite of that, they spend 2 maybe 3 years of their own time and resources trying to create a fully BEE compliant transformation of the diving industry in South Africa, creating a market offtake with shipping companies so that there is no mitigating risk for any startup. I think you're referring to a young woman in Cape Town. There's a number of female licensee holders. There's close to 30 licenses that have been applied for, and I think there's one or two over the 3 or 4 years that these companies have persisted and wait. Some of them have just actually given up in order to establish it. Obviously, every port in South Africa will require a hull cleaning machine. Every port in Africa could justify it. You need to do 2 or 3 cleans a month to break even. And it's not just hull cleaning. There's all the specialized cleaning. Obviously, diving companies also look for other forms of revenue. But this is an industry that is being birthed kind of in our backyard here in Durban, and it's been it hasn't been an easy walk, and they've invested millions of dollars, not rands, dollars, into making this product.
We are
so
kind of
I don't know. So yes, sorry. I mean, obviously we can blame Transnet because they're easy to blame because they're so useless. But the gist of it is it's a disgrace what has happened in this industry, and if there's other technologies waiting to come into this country and get treated like the custodians of the port treat ship repairers and service providers, we can. Just now we won't have an industry in South Africa. If they carry on the way they're doing, that's what's going to happen.
We are over time, but there is one slide that also Chris asked me to just show. I'm going to show it. Chris, you want to talk about this quickly? If you can keep it quite short, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, so in line with smart clean technology, we are there's a team of us that are mostly from Africa that are working on a feeder vessel that will be autonomous. Obviously, it's going to be linked to terminals and hubs where a vessel like this could quite easily quickly discharge and load. Obviously, we can identify 8 ports around the continent that these vessels will run between. It ties in with all the free trade and the cabotage and everything else that the industry is trying to push in order to keep Africa for Africans. We have all the skills to build a vessel like this here in Southern Africa, and so there's going to be a collaboration from ICASA all the way down to the Minister of Energy, the propulsion, the energy source, the engines are all patented, all South African innovations, similar to what I've just spoken about on the hull cleaning. A vessel like this will most probably have its own hull cleaning machine attached to it, and when it needs to, it will deploy it and it will clean the hull while no one's around, and stow it again. While it's not an anchor, you can see this vessel. This vessel will have like a DP2 component, so it will have like a skyhook. You'll just keep it in position, waiting for obviously the running crew to come in to take it into port. But it will be fully autonomous, and hopefully in my lifetime it will be operational. In fact, we've already got an inquiry.
That's what I was going to ask you. What are the timelines?
Very well. It's always depending on how much funding you've got to throw it. We've managed to secure some funding for this project, and then along with that, there's always got to be an offtake. So in the last couple of days, we've secured a serious inquiry for 2 of these vessels to operate up and down the east and west coast of Africa. But yeah, it's an exciting project. It's got, it can employ possibly 2,000-3,000 people over the next 5 years, just to get it on the water. Obviously, there needs to be some land-based infrastructure that is required, and we're looking at that. There's a maritime manufacturing special economic zone planned for Bay Head here in Durban, where we are hoping to assemble this vessel in collaboration with as many local suppliers as we can.
Sorry,
Sorry?
that would be my next question to you. In terms of local suppliers, is there still space for people to come on board this project with you, and can they get in touch?
Yes, of course. You look, there's a lot of new disruptive technology going into this. Okay, so the first two will most probably be a bit longer to manufacture, it's almost like a grassroots project. Okay, so as long as there's compliant, obviously the shipping industry is dependent on classification societies and the IMO, and so those from the paint to and coatings to the to the software on board, it all has to be compliant, from the safety issues to the environmental issues. So this vessel will have zero emissions and zero SOx and NOx, and it will have a system on board that will have an 85% efficient engine. There's no such thing around at this stage in the world that can produce the kind of power that's required here with an 85% efficiency. So we've secured this, and that's the backbone of or the heart, should I say, of this project. But yes, it's not a project about Chris McCann building a little silo for himself. This is a project that hopefully going to benefit a lot of people that are hanging on the fringes, kind of been waiting under rocks in hibernation or in lockdown over the last 2 years to come out and participate.
I hope they come out from under their rocks. We are way over time. I'm going to ask everyone just to give a few words of a wrap up, but there's an interesting comment there from Lorenzo Guarini, and I agree. I mean, if the technology within a ship, like what Chris is talking about, is developed to actually allow ships to carry their own hull cleaning equipment, maybe that's what we should be developing next, as opposed to the machines for our ports. So all both in conjunction. Yes, Alexis.
I can even add. We're shaping there's new materials that are coming out, hydrophobic materials that reduce the drag of ship on the water, and they are by nature anti-biofouling. So when future boats vessels would ideally not need any hull cleaning device moving forward.
Okay, let's wrap up. Steve, I'm going to hand to you because you've been a little quiet there.
Sure.
Any kind of
I think
you just want to wrap up with?
Sure. Again, from the software perspective, I've gathered that the maritime industry is a little bit reluctant to take on new software. It's obviously a big impact on the company and the vessels and everything. But I think it's really, really important that we have courage, and we need to embrace new technologies, especially in the software industry, and try things out. And we're very happy to walk the journey with you. We've had a very successful 10 years in the space. And it is possible, and the pricing is good. I think that's also a really important part of it. But it does need interest from the local community to get involved and partner with us in building these new systems.
Chris, can you do a quick word? Or...
Okay, well, let me start off by saying, 10 years ago today. No. Okay, so there's always opportunity. We're going to. Colleen, this industry is not a man only industry anymore. This industry has got to embrace the knowledge that the female and you females have got to add. There's a convergence wisdom that needs to come from every aspect of the industry. It's time for all of us to start collaborating. Otherwise you're not going to survive. I love what I heard now from our software guy. You will not survive trying to run in the maritime industry in a silo anymore. So start collaborating, start finding synergies with other companies. You go longer if you go together. Those people that are trying to kind of milk the system, get a tender here and a tender there, and those days are over. Those people have run their course, and if they don't get a shift in their mindset to collaborate openly and transparently with good governance, they're not going to be around. The industry is demanding the highest standard, and it's just too big for one person to try and do it all on your own. So, yeah, thank you for bringing us all together, Colleen, and for your persistence. Okay. And sorry for my technical issues here.
Don't worry, I had my own. Alexis, do you want to wrap up from your side?
Yeah, I'll be very quick. I'm just going to echo what Steve and Chris just said. It's all about breaking down the walls, not operating in silos. And for this to happen, the number one thing, so I believe, is to have a common objective. Set out common ambitions, common objectives that transcend competition and economic just basis and goes beyond this. And I like to think that the environment, again, and sustainable development is one common goal. The UN has designed the Sustainable Development Goals. It happens that the ocean is the one ecosystem that touches upon most of those SDGs. So let's not reinvent the wheel. Look at this and try to collaborate, obviously, in trying to shape a better future. It's a bit, we've reached an inflection point where it's very much change or go home, right? Change or die. I really want to say that. And just if you allow me, Colleen, there's Ocean Innovation Africa summit that we're organizing.
I was going to ask you to speak about that.
Okay, to be transparent. Okay, that is just aiming to do this, right? Inspiring more entrepreneurs in the ocean space, in the ocean technology space, enticing more private investment. It's good to have public funding to de-risk and demonstrate, but the scalability that is and the pace at which we need to scale is only achievable through private investment. And it's also about catalyzing partnerships, because this is the best way we see new technologies emerge, at least at the pace that we need to see them emerging. That's happening from the 5th to the 9th of November. It's hybrid. The in-person component is going to be in Cape Town on the 5th through to the 7th of November, and then 8th and 9th, online. Thank you.
I've had a look at the website, and it actually looks very interesting. And I think in our email webinar email, we'll just add those details as well, so people can find it. Also, just to let people know if you registered and attended today, you will get CPD points if you are registered with the necessary organizations. Just send me an email and I'll pass them on to Kevin. And then, last but not least, as I said before, we do have 2 more maritime industry dialogues for the rest of the year. The next one is on tenders. Sorry, Chris, there are still people that want to get involved in the tender side of things. So what we're going to do, I've been collecting maritime tenders for about 3 years, but I'm going to look at the tenders just from this year from an analytical perspective, a trend perspective. And there's some very interesting trends there in terms of which subsectors of the industry are most prevalent, and interestingly, the space that the UN plays in maritime tenders on the African continent. So please do register. I think it's going to be an interesting webinar as well. And thank you so much to my guests today. Thank you for staying a little longer than anticipated. And to our audience for engaging. We'll look at all the questions that come up in our feed afterwards and hopefully get back to you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Stay safe.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.